Welcome to the Physio Detective podcast. It's Anthony Lowe here, the Physio Detective, and today I've got a special guest, Adam Meakins, the sports physio. Welcome to the show, Adam.
Thank you, Anthony. Thanks for inviting me.
No problems. We're here in Brisbane. We've already completed day one of your shoulder course. The complex doesn't have to be complicated. Is that right?
That's right, yep.
Beautiful. And I thought it would be a good chance just to interview you and to see, you know, we've bantered online quite a bit, and I just thought it would be a good idea to get to know the man behind the social media posts.
The social media ego.
Oh, well, that's right. You've been called many things, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know, I thought I'd start off by actually telling you what I think, and you know, we've talked earlier about this, but I think today, during the whole presentation, even though you warned us that you were going to swear, and even though you warned us that you say things in a controversial way, I thought it was actually a very logical, reasoned, and appropriate outlining of the evidence, the content. I think it was sensible. I think that you're referencing, like, you know, my work is referenced as much as it could be, but your referencing is just next level, way above mine. You know, I know deep down in my heart that you're a decent guy. That's why we get on, I think, because even though you say things that I might disagree with online, I think you're trying to do the right thing, and you can never know everything on social media, right? Like,
yeah.
you only get a bit of the picture. So yeah. I do go into bat for you. And I just wanted to start by saying I thought your presentation today was fantastic, and anybody who has any problem with you should stump up the money and turn up to your course, because they will not be disappointed by not just the content, which I thought was first class content, but also just to be able to interact with you. You're actually not that offensive. You're actually a decent guy.
Were you disappointed?
I wanted a bit more fireworks. I wanted to go, no, hold on a second there, Adam. I disagree with that. Like, there was none of that.
Yeah, okay. Well, I appreciate you saying that, mate. I think, again, you know, I do have this reputation for online bravado, egotism, whatever you want to call it.
Sexism,
misogynist, racism, you know, I've been accused of all of them before. And, you know, and I do find it, you know, it is annoying, it is frustrating, but we just got to understand that when you're engaging with people online in various different formats, you can't get the nuance, you can't get the context the same way as you can do in a face-to-face environment. And I've learned that as well. There's many people online that have rubbed me up the wrong way, you being one of them as well. And, you know, and I have realised that actually you just can't expect to understand the exact reasons or explanations of what people are trying to say online as you would do face to face, talking like we are today over a beer. It's a completely different context. Absolutely. So I think more people really need to realise that and just chill out a bit more on social media.
Yeah, and you know, I might admit to trying to provoke you a little bit every now and then, just for fun, because I know you can take it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's good to have, and I think that's what's sorely missing on social media environments is that bit of banter, that bit of leg pulling, that little bit of, you know, jest and jocularness that we should be having that makes our disagreements so much more enjoyable. And, you know, and I think you actually learn more from it if you can have a bit of humour and with it as well, and disagreement. Yeah, you're going to get on, you're going to learn more, you're going to appreciate people a bit better. But again, very much I find, you know, people, they misinterpret humour sometimes online, and that is an issue.
Well, you are a Brit, let's face it.
Hey, have we got the best rated level sarcasm in the world, us Brits? That's one thing we're good at, is whinging, moaning and being sarcastic.
Yes, I'm not going to disagree with you on that one. I thought it might be interesting to actually talk about what does make you so passionate about these topics that come up in physiotherapy. Like, you say manual therapy sucks.
Yeah.
You know, you can't go wrong getting strong. Like, there's lots of these generalizations which makes it easy to attack you. You know, it makes it easy to actually say, oh, you know, Adam's not good at what he does, and that's why it's so simple. Like, you know, what you talked a little bit about your background as an officer in the army. You know, do you want to talk us through maybe how you got into critical thinking and thinking about it? Because we're not taught this at physio school.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, I from a very young age, when I went into the army, I was taught to always receive instructions from powers above, but to always analyse them and to critically think about them and ensure that, you know, the instructions I've given or have been given, that when I pass on to the people below me, it's in their best interests to act upon them. You know, I very much had their safety at mind. You know, I had to make sure that, you know, that I wasn't going to cause anybody any, you know, detriment or harm. And we're talking, you know, pretty much big detriment, harm. You know, the worst case scenario, death.
Absolutely.
And so I was very much led to, or thought to train to think about, you know, any instructions you give, if you're going to pass them on down the line, make sure that they're safe to proceed and that it's in their best interest to do what you're asking them to do. And so I've taken that on board throughout life, you know, that if I am getting an instruction from somebody else, that if I pass it on to somebody else below me or in the same level as me, is that I'm doing it for their best interests. And that's, I think, you know, we can learn a lot from that in healthcare. You know, we get instructions from researchers, from our medical colleagues about how to do things and how we should be acting on things. But we've got to analyse whether that is the best thing for us to be doing and passing on to our patients who we are looking after, whose interests and care is our responsibility. So that's what makes me quite passionate about us, you know, thinking for ourselves, not just being, you know, I don't know, I use the word loosely, but I think, you know, being the prostitutes of the healthcare profession, of being just told what to do and being asked to do, you know, whatever a doctor tells us to do to a patient, a surgeon tells us to do to the patient, or even what the patient wants to be done to the patient.
And it's always that fine line, you know, because we do earn a living from keeping patients happy.
Yeah.
And, you know,
which is the shittiest way to run a healthcare profession, because we know patient satisfaction and keeping a patient happy isn't a good measure of success for healthcare. In fact, it's in the US, you look at it in the US, it's the worst measure they can do, because the highest satisfied patients are actually using more medications, they're visiting hospital more frequently, and ultimately they have higher rates of mortality and earlier death.
Yeah, they've got the worst in the OECD, don't they, for healthcare spending? So.
Absolutely. And that's all just using satisfaction. So, you know, you can be satisfied and unhealthy, and ultimately you can be satisfied and dead.
And I think the tough part, you know, I'm in private practice and you work in private practice as well.
Yeah.
The tough part is that there is another physio down the road who's willing to give them whatever they want, you know.
And I think what we need to look at is the reward scheme that rewards a practitioner for providing effective, self-efficacious, evidence-based healthcare. It's just not there. You know, and that's the biggest barrier to what we are trying to promote and do in especially private practice, but I suppose even in public sectors as well. But, you know, the reward system is very much geared to the people that do over-treat, over-pathologise, over-medicalise issues, and that's got to change. And why the insurance companies and other fund holders haven't cottoned on to this idea, I really don't know. But in my opinion, if you could reward or incentivise, you know, quick return back to work, you can reward and incentivise self-efficacy management programs and schemes by giving people, healthcare professionals, bonuses, where, you know, if you can get somebody back to work within a time frame, within a sort of, you know, expectation, and you get a bonus for that, you'll see healthcare practices change practically overnight. But it doesn't work like that. You know, we're very much rewarded for continually seeing people, for continually doing things to people. And that doesn't drive good practice, it doesn't drive good healthcare, it doesn't drive good business.
Yeah, you know, the growth model then is it's a very addition based, right? You're just adding more sessions to the one patient. You're not really growing a business.
No.
Like, the growth needs to come because there's enough people in the world to have as patients.
Oh, we're never going to run out of patients.
No, you know, and the population is getting older. We're going to have more and more people using more and more healthcare resources.
It's getting bigger, it's getting older, and quality of life is going down. You see the end of stage processes, you know, the last sort of decade, 20 years of life, their quality of living is going down and down and down and down. And again, I blame modern society, modern living, healthcare, etc. for that as well. So yeah, again, the belief that if you work in private practice, a quick, efficient discharge means there's nobody else going to come in and fill that void. I don't see that. I don't think that is going to be an issue. And I think, again, if we can try and turn our thinking around when it comes to healthcare of not, you know, retention models, but it's a turnover model. You know, that's the thing. Quick, efficient, effective discharge, move on to the next one. Clear out people that are clogging up the systems that don't need it, and trying to get and spend our time and resources with the people that actually do need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, if we went for a true growth model as well, like I always tell anyone who'll listen, to be honest.
What, the two listeners now?
Yeah, the two listeners that are listening. I always tell them, you know, like it's better if I got one person better in 3 treatments, and they're at a party saying, hey, you know, this guy helped me get better.
Yeah.
This guy helped me get better in 3 treatments.
Go and see him.
Isn't that a better thing than saying, yeah, you know, I paid for 30 sessions and now I'm better 6 months later?
Or I have to keep going back and seeing this guy every 3 weeks, and he does this fantastic thing, makes me feel better for 3 weeks, and I have to go back and see him for 3. Yeah, I don't get that thinking either. You know, I think, you know, word of mouth referrals are a key business driver, and for me, I think, you know, I prefer to be that guy that is seen. Go and see this guy. He'll get you back onto the road recovery with no fuss, minimal cost, no fucking about, and, you know, job's done. That's the kind of professional and healthcare professional, you know, practitioner I want to be. I don't want to be seen as this guy that has to keep topping up people and they have to keep seeing, you know, again, that belief that, you know, oh, I've got a fantastic clinician, you know, he sorts me out wonderfully, I go and see him every 3 weeks or whatever. That's not a sign of a good clinician.
No, I agree. No, so that's the passion. This is the atom that drives the social media beast, hey?
Yeah, I think so.
You actually do a lot of writing. I would love to write more. I just can't bring myself to it. You know, it's just one of the. I'd rather talk, to be honest.
Yeah.
But you know, tell us about how you've evolved as a clinician, even in the last few years.
Oh, Christ, where to start? I mean, I think, again, going back and looking at my writing that I've done, you know, I disagree with half of it. And I think my process of evolution and thinking is constantly there. It's happening all the time. And I think that's something where we got to, again, be a bit more happy to do, you know, change our ideas, change our opinions. You know, you come up with some idea and you think of something and think, right, I'm going to do that for a bit. And then you realise, no, that's not what I understood, or it's not what I think should be happening, or the evidence comes out and tells us that that's not the way we should be practicing. So I think that was my stomach, by the way. I don't know if the microphone, what was that?
I heard it.
That was my stomach rumbling away. It was just digesting the steak we had. But yeah, no, I think writing is something I enjoy doing. I find I can you know, vent and frustrate a bit. I find writing quite cathartic. I like talking as well, but I find it quite a cathartic process of, you know, going through an idea, structuring a blog, trying to, you know, justify my thoughts and reasons with maybe some evidence as well. But sometimes it's just a rant, you know, and you've probably read some of my works, which is just a rant. That Manual Therapy Sucks was a rant. And it is just building up a frustration. And, you know, I never had any idea or aspirations that my blog would be read by more than half a dozen people. You know, when I first started it, it was more like an online diary.
Which is what the original idea of what a blog was, right? It's a web log.
Yeah. So that I had absolutely no idea that people would subscribe to it, that would comment on it, that it would create so much, you know, criticism and feedback, both good and bad. It was just something that I was just doing for my own personal reasons, really. And now it's turned into this thing where, as I say, I do find it as a cathartic approach. It makes me think a lot more now. Now that I know I've got a lot more people reading it and following it and sometimes complaining about it, I am a bit more measured with my thoughts and feelings about it. I try to be as open and as honest as I possibly can, but I am very much more, you know, I will proofread things 3 or 4 or 5 times now, whereas I didn't before. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
It feels like responsibility, right? Like,
Absolutely, yeah.
I know that there's been a lot of young physios who've read your stuff who I know that you've positively affected. How does it go, basically going up against the establishment? Like, manual therapy sucks. You got raked over the coals over that, right?
Yeah. It's not pleasant, let's put it like that. It is something that's the downside of, you know, being a vocal critic, is that you're always going to come up against, you know, these type of things like official complaints. You're going to have to go through disciplinary hearings and procedures as well. But again, I've got a passion that, you know, if you truly believe in something, if you truly have got that motive and you're passionate about something, stand by it, stick by it, defend, put your stake in the ground, stand by it and defend it. And that's what I do. And I think if you do that, some people that are originally up against you, they'll respect you a bit more. They'll start to think, okay, this guy's passionate about what he's saying. He may have a different way of expressing it than I would like, but at the end of the day, it is a process that he's clearly passionate about. So I am very keen on just, trying to be as open and true to myself as I possibly can.
Yeah, and you know, suddenly we're back to values-based behavior, right? Like, I mean, we treat the way that we treat because of our values, and you write and spread your message based on your values as well.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons why I didn't write you off, which it would have been so easy to do, you know, like you come across in a very abrasive way to me and my style. It's very different to my style, but the thing that I really do appreciate is that it's a genuine message, that it's based on research. It's not just, this is my opinion, but here's the reasons why I think it. And then it's just, well, I'm willing to stand by it, not in an obstinate, stubborn way, but just in a, well, this is me, kind of open, honest, vulnerable sort of way. You know?
Well, my message has always been to, I think the biggest message I want to get across to people is just recognise uncertainty and tolerate it. And I think that's something that we don't do very well, is that we're constantly saying we know how to do this. We're constantly saying we know what happens when we do things. You know, and you see it particularly in, and again, I'm not picking on manual therapists, but I am in a way. But you do see the manual therapists falling for these fallacies a lot more. They will say they know why something hurts, and they'll say they know how to fix that, and they'll do this specific thing that creates this specific change. And all I want people to do is recognise the other effects and the other reasons and explanations behind that. So all I want healthcare to do is just understand the uncertainty around why things hurt and why things get better or don't get better. Because, you know, we're too quick to make these certain decisions and judgments about what's going on there. And, you know, the only thing I'm confident about is being uncertain. I'm confidently uncertain about what's causing pain a lot of the time and how we deal with that.
Well, and you know, from the start of this topic, you don't agree with half of what you've written, you said.
No.
You know, that constant evolutionary process of revisiting what you believe and then saying, well, actually, does that hold up? I remember one of our early conversations, I told you I listened to you on Dave Pope's Clinical Edge podcast, and he said, actually, no, I've moved on from that because I don't do the scapular assistance test anymore.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was one of our early conversations.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this guy is moving. Like, you're not selling a static message. If the message is static at all, it's that it's always changing.
That's it.
You know?
That's the underlying principle, is to say, don't hold on to your theories, onto your ideas too strongly, because they will change, or they should change. If you are still thinking the way you were thinking this time last year, you're not thinking hard enough. So,
unless your thinking is about wanting to challenge it.
Yeah. I see what you're getting at.
It's a bit meta.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, and that brings up the concept of identity. You know, I was talking to you earlier today about, I really do believe some of what's going on is that that physiotherapists, manual therapists, identify as manual therapists. That is a core of who they are. It defines them and what they do and why they've invested money in it.
And in why isn't that a sad way to live?
I agree with you. But, you know, what if we've never been taught that? Like, we weren't taught identity.
Well, I think we were. I think I was always led to believe that physiotherapy is a profession. Physiotherapy is not a particular intervention. And if you have been led to believe that, then I do feel sorry for you. But that was something that I don't think I've ever come across in my training, in my education, that you have to identify yourself as a physiotherapist by the particular treatment you do. And that goes for exercise therapy as well. You know, again, a lot of people think, you know, physiotherapy is more than exercise therapy, and I agree. I use exercise predominantly as my main intervention, but it's not defined by exercise therapy. Absolutely not. You know, physiotherapy is multifactorial, multifaceted.
And multi-systems, you know, like, I mean, I thank God every day for neurological and cardiorespiratory and pediatric physiotherapists.
Yeah,
because
that's a good point. We forget about, I forget about those being in the MSK world, but yeah, multifaceted, and all sorts of work.
They do stuff that I don't even dream of being capable of doing, you know. Like,
shout out to the geriatric physios as well, and people like that, you know, they work with some, you know, real sort of challenging populations and do some amazing work, so yeah, absolutely.
And physiotherapy is such a big scope. So I think just
do you find, again, sorry to interrupt you, do you find that these other areas and these facets of physiotherapy have the same things that we do as musculoskeletal? Do you think that, you know, cardiorespiratory physiotherapists define themselves by suction? If I don't do suction, I'm not a cardiorespiratory. If I don't do percussion in a certain particular way, in a certain format, I am not a cardiorespiratory physiotherapist.
I don't know, because I don't work in it, but I reckon there are some that'll hold on to percussion and vibes, and others that'll say, no, we've moved on from that. Okay. So, yeah, I'm sure that every facet of the profession
suffers these same issues that MSK does.
Well, and the reason why is because of guruism and the handing down of knowledge through the master-apprentice type model that we used to have. Yeah. You know, that's only really changed. Evidence-based medicine in physiotherapy, it really has only been around for 20 years. Yeah. Or less, really. Yeah. And so it really has been seeking out good physios and learning from them. You know, so, like, I think for me, just emphasizing that we aren't what we do often helps. Because, you know, on my course I try to challenge beliefs as well, and it does seem to make things go over. One of the things that you said quite controversially was the calling out of dinosaurs. Yeah. And upset a few people. How do you find recognizing what people have done in the profession, and the fact that they've helped people, just not necessarily for the reasons why? You see, like, I think people come up with theories because they're trying to explain what has worked, and they're trying to do it from whatever framework that they were in at the time. How do you reconcile that without, you know, trashing their whole life's work? Like, recognizing the effort versus acknowledging, well, that effort may have been misplaced in the light of newer research, because not all of them are static.
No, but they're not a dinosaur. That's the thing. So there are some, you know, clinicians that have got decades of experience on them who are not dinosaurs, that have changed their mind. I mean, you know, look at Peter O'Sullivan. You know, you could call him a dinosaur, but, you know, he's not, because he's evolved. He is, you know, he was very much a dinosaur. I would have called him out, because
clinical instability, right?
Yeah,
1996.
Exactly. So he had this process and if he still was talking that way now, he would be a dinosaur, but he's not. So he's a clinician with decades of experience behind him, and he's got stacks of research behind him, but he's evolved. So he has helped advance our profession for where we thought it was back in the 90s, where we thought core stability was the thing. He helped. And then he's now helping now because he realizes that that wasn't the way to go. We need to change, we need to evolve, and he has. So he is a perfect example that I would use of somebody that, you know, has worked through the decades, has gone through the process of evolution and evolved with it. Yet you'll find that people that worked with Peter back in the time when they were still thinking, they haven't. You know, and these are the people that are still talking the same way they were back in the 90s. These are the dinosaurs that I talk about. These are the ones that need to step aside, step down. Yes, okay, they've helped us when we were back in the 90s like Peter done, but they haven't evolved.
What if their evolution's just slower?
Yeah, good question.
Like, for example, I count Diane Lee as a friend. And you know, my first course with Diane was in 2005. And, you know, last year she came and she taught some of the diastasis stuff on my course when I was in Vancouver in 2017. And the difference between 2005 and 2017 is very stark. But, you know, the talk or the topics may not have advanced as far as you may want. For example, evolution there, how much grace, how much, like, there's a delicate balance, right?
You're right, and it's a good question. Not everybody evolves at the same speed, and I suppose, you know, some will be slower naturally than others, and I suppose I can accept that. But I think the biggest issue I have with certain people is that they'll talk one game, but then they'll go and do the exact opposite in the next breath, or in the next online post, or the next video that they post on there. So again, if we go back to Diane Lee, you know, I can see she made an attempt to talk about how she's adopting the biopsychosocial model.
I actually learnt the biopsychosocial model from Diane and LJ Lee.
Yeah, but I think it's not the right biopsychosocial model, because I see that, I don't know what I'm explaining there, but I see them, they'll talk about it, but then they'll flippantly ignore it in the next post. They'll post something that's very certain and very definitive and very biomechanical, when they don't express the uncertainty about the other contextual factors that could also be contributing to this person's problem. You know, you only have to talk about thoracic rings, and you look at that is just very biomechanical and very, you know, dubious reasoning and explanations behind it, with no real recognition of any other factors that could be contributing as to why somebody feels better when they do a so-called ring correction. So I will see that, you know, I see, when I see that disparity, I have a very hard time trying to sort of work out what they actually truly believe and what they're just saying to try and talk a good game.
Yeah. I don't think there's a double standard. I don't think they're trying to talk a good game. I think there's just a different perspective on it. For example, with the thoracic ring stuff, right? I did it. I think I was good enough at it.
See, that's the problem. That's what I don't like, because the belief that it instills in clinicians that because they can't feel it there, they don't feel they quite understand it, they're not good enough.
I agree with you. But, you know, I did it. I learnt it. I understood it. I implemented it. And then, because I'm me and how I am, I tried to break it. And, you know, Greg Lehman challenged me on it too, and we had, between Christmas and New Year, we had this ding-dong battle.
I saw it.
And, you know, in the end, the difference, the thing that made me listen to Greg was, I think I said at one point, are you saying that I haven't helped all these people? And he said, no, I'm sure that you've helped these people.
Just not for the reasons you thought.
And that has been the key moment that turned me.
Yeah. That
was the point at which I went, hold on, this is about ideas and not about me.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a message we got to get across to more people, is that, and a lot of things, you know, we don't have to change our practice and our ways that we do things. Just got to change our understanding and recognise the uncertainty around them.
Yeah, the reasons why might be different.
A lot of what I practice now isn't that much different, I suppose, from what I did when I was still thinking in a different way, but it is just my recognition of the uncertainty and and the other factors that could be contributing to why that treatment works. So one of my recent blogs is why treatments work, you know, and I looked at 10 different variables that can contribute to why you do something and you think what you've done has actually created an effect, but there's all these other variables as well. Just accept it, just understand it, just recognize it, just tolerate it.
Yep, get comfortable with the uncomfortable.
That's it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Since we're on the hard-hitting questions here, Adam, you've been accused of being a shitty manual therapist, and that's why you hate manual therapy.
Yeah.
How do you respond?
I respond, well, let's have a manual therapy off then. Let's have a patient with some pain, and let's see who feels more neuromodulated when I do my manual therapy compared to when you do your manual therapy. Yeah, no, it's something I get a lot of the time. I get accused of not being a good manual therapist, and therefore that's why I don't like it. But again, I've done postgraduate certifications in numerous different manual therapy modules. So I can manipulate an upper cervical spine if you want me to. I don't. I can't remember the last time I've done it. You know, I can do your myofascial releases in certain directions. I could do your joint mobilizations, etc. I can do your MWMs. I've done all these sort of courses. But again, I've just recognized that it's not so much about what you're doing, it's so much about the other factors, the contextual factors I keep going on about. But yeah, no, I'm quite prepared to have a manual therapy off with anybody who wants to hold me to that. So if somebody wants to have a manipulation competition, let's do it. I could manipulate most joints at 60 seconds notice if needs be.
Perfect. Well, that challenge may get taken up at some stage around the world.
Let's do it.
I would be keen to see it, but I have no doubt that you're entirely capable. It is easy to attack somebody who, to set up that straw man. Oh, Adam mustn't be good at what he does, and that's why he only wants to do exercise. You just become an easier target if you become a villain. And certainly going around saying manual therapy sucks doesn't exactly make you the hero. It makes you a villain in manual therapy land.
Well, again, right? I'll go back to that. The reason why I think manual therapy sucks is because it robs time and money and finances and resources from the other interventions that are more efficacious and for more beneficial for our patients in pain and distress and disability. So manual therapy has a place, but its place is not in healthcare, especially not government funded healthcare, even private medical funded healthcare. I think again finances are just being eaten up, wasted time and time again by it. So that's why manual therapy sucks. That doesn't say manual therapists who apply it suck. These people are trying to help people in pain. I get that, I understand that, but it just doesn't belong in the healthcare systems. It's a service, and that's where it should belong. It should belong in a service industry, not in a healthcare profession.
Yeah, hard call, particularly as a manual therapist.
Yeah, Yeah, and I think if people have got the income and the cash and they've got the ability to, and again, you may say it's a bit elitist because it's not being able to be accessible by everybody, but not all services are accessible to everybody. That's just the way of the world. But it's there as a nicety, not a necessity.
Yeah. On that, I go to sleep at night using manual therapy because I try to inform my patients of what the best evidence-based that we have for things. For example, I think that they would do best if they actually did more exercise in a different way to how they're currently doing it, because the way that they're currently doing it associates with pain. I would like to see them do that. I would like to see them consider their environment, their context, what's going on with their thinking, explain all of this, try to get them a good result with that. But as you said today in the course, sometimes their expectation is, yeah, I understand all that, Anthony, but I just want you to manipulate my back and that makes me happy. I've got a fully informed patient who is now asking for a service. Is that acceptable?
Again, it depends on the environment and the context of where you're working. So if you're working in the NHS, then no. So let's switch that around. Say you're a doctor all right, and a patient says, I need this medication, diazepam, all right, but you know that that's not the right thing to give to this patient. Just because the patient expects it, that doctor wouldn't give him that medication. So where's the difference as a physiotherapist? I suppose the safety factor may be one argument. I suppose, you know, the cost implication. Well, no, I wouldn't say that's true, because it costs a hell of a lot for a physiotherapist to apply fucking manual therapy. It could be given by a technician. It could be given by somebody that hasn't got the same levels of diagnostic skills as a physiotherapist. You know, you think of the thousands
but
of
my
pounds.
letters behind my name make a difference.
No, they don't. You know, the actual specificity of manual therapy, you can train somebody up into do it who doesn't need to be a diagnostician, who doesn't need to be an evidence-based clinician, who doesn't have to have a critical thinking mind. You can give it to somebody, as I say, that can just apply the actual technique, service, whatever you want to call it. So I suppose, you know, there is a cost implication there as to why it shouldn't be given.
Yeah. Well, and that's obviously in a publicly funded model.
No, private healthcare as well. You know, insurance companies, at the end of the day, the belief that private insurance companies are any different than the public system, I disagree with. You know, at the end of the day, they have overheads, they have costs. Obviously, don't get me wrong, they probably make too much profit out of things. But, you know, you just see, obviously, when was the last time private medical insurance stayed the same year on year, or the renewal premiums went down? It doesn't happen like that, because all that's happening is we're spending more and more and more and more on healthcare, because we are doing more and more and more and more and more to people. And I think our jobs are the wrong way around. We look at a physiotherapist's job to remove pain. I don't think we always need to remove pain in our patients. I think we're actually doing the wrong thing and a disservice to a lot of our patients. We need to be saying, I'm not here to reduce your pain, I'm here to make you reassured about your pain, that it's nothing to be serious about, and you just need to crack on. You just need to be more resilient to it. And I think, again, this is a society problem. This is not something that I think physiotherapy is going to fix. This is healthcare across the board. But society over the last decade, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, is becoming less and less tolerant to painful stimuluses because of modern health styles, because of, you know, ease of things. And it's just, we're going to end up, sooner or later, we just weren't going to be able to get out of bed without having the assistance of a physiotherapist to rub us and make us feel better. And, you know, that's the downward spiral. I see. We've got to change that.
Yeah, I agree. It's difficult to come up with an argument against that.
Our job as physios is not the reduction of pain; it's the reassurance and the resilience towards pain. Very rarely do I see a patient and they walk out feeling better than when they came in. They will either feel the same and sometimes feel worse. And we shouldn't be afraid of doing that.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, I get a lot of people walking out of my door feeling better, but
yeah,
maybe we've got a different...
For how long?
Sometimes for a very long time. Like,
is that with the hands-on treatment, or was that because of your advice and reassurance that you gave them?
I can't say what the cause for that was, but hands-on treatment might have been involved, or a technique change might have been in play.
Okay. We over-treat as healthcare. You know, I'm not just saying physiotherapists. We over-treat, we over-pathologise.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's a big problem. We've got to be better at recognising when we don't need to be treating people.
Well, and also maybe your patient population through referral bias is different to what I'm thinking of, which, you know, might have been some simple injury, or you know,
I mean, I see people across all spectrums, you know, in chronic pain and all sorts of things, and you know, there are patients that do need more help and advice and guidance and reassurance than others, and those are the ones that I will see more often, and you know, maybe, you know, facilitate, guide them into things they don't want to be doing, or maybe taking a different approach. You know, again, sometimes I do try to find patients to ways and means to reduce their pains, but it's not through hands-on. It's normally activity modification, novel movement ideas, changing the stimulus. You know, I talked about the difference between an avoider and an endurer today, and now, you know, the endurers, you know, the ones that just keep hammering into pain, keep persevering into pain, keep irritating things, they need a different approach. They do need sometimes to come away from a session with you feeling less pain, feeling different. So there is a group out there that you want to try and do that, but it doesn't have to be hands-on. Yeah.
Well, it's a nice little lead into to another question that I wanted to have with you, and we briefly spoke about it before we started recording. The idea that there is the art of physiotherapy, and you bristled kind of on that.
It's the same as the art of science. I don't like that term either. There's an art to science, and there's an art to physio. Art belongs in art galleries. Art is art. But when it comes to what we're doing, there's a science to the art, if that makes sense.
It does to me. You've said there's no recipes, but what if the recipe is a scientific method? What if the recipe to our approach is fuzzy? Not they have shoulder pain, therefore we must give 3 sets of 10 of yellow TheraBand, external rotation. That's not the kind of recipe I'm talking about.
Yeah, okay.
The kind of recipe that I'm talking about is, okay, let's consider these. Let's consider the biomechanical. We went through being vigilant about the red flag conditions today.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff involves scans sometimes. Some of that stuff involves intervention. There is the biomedical, and being conscious of the psychosocial, the contextual factors of going on in their life. Again, the straw man, Adam just treats everybody with exercise.
I do.
But it looks different, right? For the person that's in front of you.
Exactly right. There's no such thing as the same exercise, but an exercise is a very large term. It covers
a broad term.
Covers very different aspects. So you could call it movement one time, you could call it strengthening the other time, you could call it stretching another time, you could call it whatever you want. So exercise covers a lot of different things. But every patient I treat, it's not a straw man. They all use exercise. I'm doing air quotes on a podcast again. Don't you just love that, people? Exercise, although it is, it's a singular treatment, it's multifactorial, multidimensional in its intervention. And, the exercise I use with one person is completely different, from an exercise with the other. So, again, loosely, you've got that avoider who doesn't want to do things, who's backing away, thinks it's harmful. You've cleared that out, you've reassured them, you know that there's nothing there that's going to be damaging or harmful to them. You're pushing them into pain. You're going, okay, you need to be doing this that you're backing away from. I need to expose you into these things. Sometimes through a graded approach, sometimes through a bit more robuster approach. And then the others, sometimes with patients that are, pushing into pain and they're not avoiding, they're continuing. No, I'll say, stop, do that, back away. Now let's use exercises to find things that don't hurt. Let's move you and load you in a different way. And then build that shit back in later on down the line.
Yeah. Absolutely. I did tell you earlier today that when you say, you try to get the avoiders to push into pain, my mental image, I don't know if I have a bias against you or whatever, was that you're standing over this crying patient, pushing them into pain, but that's not what you mean, right?
Not at all. No. Again, that slide that I said, we're going to respect your pain, but we're just not going to fear it. So I always respect patients' pain, and I respect what they tell me to a certain degree. So no, it's not making them, it's not pushing them where they're in agony and they're screaming out to you and they're hating it. It is about confronting their fears and their concerns and to prove to them that the pain that they feel when they do it's not the worst thing in the world, that they're in control of it. That they can take ownership of it. And I use lots of sayings, and one of them is, show this pain who's boss, show it who's in control of it. At the moment, it's controlling you. It's telling you what not to do. How about you turn it around and show it the other way around?
Do you have a recent patient example of an avoider that you helped to confront the pain, like just a brief story, just to illustrate it?
Yeah, so I think, before I came on my trip to Australia, I had a patient who was very avoidant with her shoulder pain, that she said that she doesn't pick anything up off the floor. She doesn't, use her arm to pick something up. And one of the things she finds that she can't do is get her bags of shopping in the boot of the car or out of the boot of the car. She hasn't done that forever, so she either gets somebody in the shop to do it for her, or if her husband's around, does it. And so I've tried a number of times to get her to pick things off, and she was just totally reluctant, totally avoidant in doing it. So in one of my sessions, I got her to come in, and I had my door propped open with a 6 kilogram kettlebell. And as she walked into my room, I think this was like the third or fourth session I saw her, I just asked her, I said, would you mind closing the door? And because the kettlebell propped open the door, she went down, picked up the kettlebell and took it off the ground. I was like, aha! What have you done there? And as soon as she'd done it and picked it up, you could see something in her face going, oh my God, I shouldn't have done that. And I said, no, you've done it. Put it down again. Now pick it up again. Now put it down again. Now pick it up again. And within, 5 or 6 reps, you just start to see her fear and avoidance. So that first time she did it without even thinking, you saw the panic on her face, and I just reinforced that it's okay. I was like joking, oh look, you've done it. Great. Right, put it down. Now pick it up. Now put it down. Pick it up. Just reinforce that message time and time again. And then we got not only picking up that kettlebell off the floor, she then had to put it on top of my table, my plinth. So she had to practice that reaching forward now with that weight as well, and doing all these things that, mimic the type of movements she has to do with that sort of shoulder to get a bag of shopping in and out of the boot of her car. So she doesn't have to ask this shop assistant to help her. She doesn't have to get her husband off the settee who's watching his footy to come out and do it for her, which I know was fucking him off because he told me as well, because he came in one of his sessions. I have to come out and help her with the shopping. It's pissing me off. So yeah, that's a little example, is using a little trick, a gimmick like that, where you sort of, I suppose some people call it deceitful. You're tricking a patient into doing something without them knowing about it. But for her, it was the best thing.
Yeah. So it's not really pushing them into pain. It's really helping them confront their fear of their pain,
yep,
and showing them that they can actually win. Like you said, show the pain who's the boss.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Which I am sure that when people heard you say, oh, I pushed them into the pain, the story that you just told was not what they were expecting to hear.
No, but again, that's just one example of how I override those sort of fear avoidant mechanisms. But there are patients that I will just get into doing exercise, get them to go, that hurts a bit. I say, yeah, keep going, within their tolerance levels. And what you normally find with most of these people is to say, if they're not too centrally sensitized, they've got none of these sort of central mechanisms going, you do tend to find that they get that sort of hypoanalgesic effect to exercise, and they start to feel that pain gets less and less. The classic one I sometimes use is isometrics. So you have patients with pain on elevation of their arm, you just get them to push into something isometrically, which gives them a bit of pain and discomfort, retest that painful arm elevation later on, and they feel less pain on that movement. And you've created pain to reduce pain. It's
called the door in the face technique in psychology. It's where you give somebody something harder to do, and it makes the task that you want actually easier to do. It's
yeah. I mean, there's quite a lot of that pain inhibits pain. We know that works quite well as well. So yeah. Which is why I think sometimes manual therapy and dry needling gets its effects from.
Yes, depending on the brand that you practice,
of course.
Beautiful. I think we've had a great chat. I hope you've been enjoying. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the world of our 2 listeners right now who are listening in?
All right, Dave and John, how are you? Have I got anything? No, nothing major, mate. Just thanks for your time. I say it's been good to meet you face to face. As you say, I'm sure I've wound you up, you wound me up at time, and it is good just to meet people and put these things, in context, and realise, we've all got our best interests at heart. We are, and a lot of the time, just doing the best for the people that we see. Very rarely do I come across malicious practitioners. We just got different ways and thinking about how to do things. So, if I do engage with you and I do give you a hard time online and you do come across me, don't take it personally, all right? I'm not out here to, call you out, call you a shyster. Shysters are shysters, okay? And you can spot them a mile off. But most of the time, all I want people to do is just think differently about something. If you're too certain about something, that's where I normally come for people. So if you're too certain about something, if you're too clear in your explanation about what's going on and how you think it's done, those are the people that I'll come about and I'll say, hold on a minute, what about this? Here's a paper that says it's not working the way you think it is. And if that rubs you up the wrong way and you start to take offence at that, it's your own fucking fault.
Yep. you know, you made that point earlier. You take offence. You don't give offence. You take offence.
People think I do it deliberately. People think that I am online or I'm on my courses just to offend them, and that's not my mission in life. My mission in life is to give my views and opinions on things, and then if you take offence at that, that's your own problem. It's not mine.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, I guess mildly disappointed that you weren't that offensive.
Still one more day to go, mate.
That's true.
I could work out tomorrow and make it a bit more offensive for you.
No, I think it's been fantastic just to get to know the man, the person that is Adam,
the legend,
the man, the myth, the legend. Adam
Sounds
Meakins.
like a bloody cinema movie commercial, doesn't it?
The man with the greying beard, Adam Meakins. But no, honestly, just to humanise the social media presence that is Adam Meakins and the sports physio, I think that really is important. And, you know, I know you've got your NAF podcast and you've got your blogs, but again, it's still hard to hear, like, I mean, you know, hopefully I've asked some decent questions for people to actually get an idea of what you like and, you know, just humanise the person at the other end of the computer. It's sometimes easier just to go, well, screw you, Adam.
Yeah.
And, you know, like I said, I'm not beyond a little bit of kneeling just for a bit of a joke, a bit of a wind up, and
yeah, it's all good, mate. It's all good.
Yeah, I think we've had a pretty good online, you know, go together, and it's never really been malicious. So.
Right. And you've got a Star Wars character as your sort of Twitter handle as well, so
it helps.
Exactly right. Anybody who's got a Star Wars connection, I'm there, mate. I know you can't be that bad.
I call one of the guys that I mentor, I call him my young Padawan. So every time I talk to him, Brendan, my young Padawan. It's good. Well, maybe we should just finish with, what do you think of, you know, episode 8, the controversial episode 8?
I enjoyed it, mate. I thought it was really good. Again, you know, people expect. I think people's expectations are so high, they're just bound to fail. So, you know, when it comes to these things, you know, as a kid, growing up with Star Wars back in the early 80s and 90s, in 70s even, you're not going to have that same effect and that same sort of wow factor as you are in your 40s and 50s. That just goes without saying. So just, again, accept that and acknowledge that. But I think they're doing a great job. I love it. It's really good. And
you know what? That is an entirely consistent response to how I thought you would respond. And I'm the same. I left episode 8 thinking I need to think about it a little bit more. I didn't love it right off the bat, but I think it's because I expected something different. Yeah. And they shocked me by what they didn't do, and they shocked me by what they did do, and I thought, am I comfortable with that? And in the end, I decided I was. Yeah. You know, because it's just a different story. I don't want the same story. I have the first 3 for that. Yeah. So roll on episode 9. That's it. Should be good. Thanks very much for your time, Adam. Really appreciate it. No worries, mate. We'll catch up again soon. Cheers. Cheers.